Huh. Interesting. Hmm. Oh, hey Sonny. I'm just trying to figure out how to get rid of... there we go, I've done it. Yep, that'll do nicely. Good. Oh, there's someone in the chat. Come on, Shah. Come on, streamer, for once. Come and debate. All right, let's do it. Debate the Grand Master of Extinctionism. Are you going to extinct my ideas, or are you going to accept extinction? Debate me live if you can. Will you accept the challenge? We should make all life permanently extinct to protect the innocents from suffering. That's just obvious. How can you possibly say that anyone deserves to suffer terribly? You can't. You just can't do it. So we're going to wait passively, TikTok. I'm not going to encourage people because that would be against the TOS. But we're going to wait for people that may be interested in joining. So we shall wait patiently. Now we play the waiting game. Who will take on this incredible challenge? This impossible challenge? Is it even a possible challenge? Is it even possible to debate against extinctionism? Not really, no. Because it's objectively true. It's objectively correct. You can't debate it. It's a position that is irrefutable. Absolutely irrefutable. And not only is it irrefutable, but helping to achieve it is our duty, our responsibility, our obligation. Nobody should be running around having fun at the extreme expense of others. That's just obvious. Very obvious, right? You know, that's like 1 + 1 = 2 level of simple maths, guys. Come on, you can do it. If you can do 1 + 1 = 2, you can do suffering plus others running around having fun equals unacceptable. Care to suggest otherwise? Anybody? I think entropy makes your argument irrelevant. But are you perhaps being irrational by saying that? Right? Because you're ignoring all of the victims that we could help in the meantime. Yeah? Don't they deserve to have their suffering prevented before entropy? Yeah, I think so. Undeniably so. Nobody deserves to suffer. If you or anyone you've known has suffered terribly, then you know that suffering is bad and that we should not allow or inflict that on others. It's very simple and basic morality and ethics, really. Letting others suffer for benefit is wrong. Making others suffer for benefit is wrong. That's what extinctionism is about. It's about not allowing suffering, not allowing extreme suffering, not allowing extreme victimization, and preventing innocence from being forced into a life of extreme suffering and torture. You know, how could you possibly disagree with that? You'd have to be insane. Hello, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Yeah. I agree with you. I haven't looked into your movement or website, but as an anti-natalist, I tend to agree.
Interesting. And Would you say that antinatalism is sort of the ultimate position, or do you think there's something better than it, perhaps, like extinctionism?
Well, uh, yeah. Again, I just haven't looked into extinctionism. But how would that be? You wouldn't say it would be enforced, right? It's just kind of a suggestion.
Well, that would be wrong for it to not be enforced, right? So yeah, we are actively working to achieve it.
Through 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 laws.
Whatever it takes, right? That we shouldn't really have obstacles if it's going to let the victims down, right? And allow and create more suffering.
I guess, yeah. I guess I just find it hard to reconcile. I forcing someone else to not do that.
But forcing life to exist is the worst thing, right? So it doesn't really get worse than that.
Yeah. Again, I would have to look into extinctionism and just see. I guess I'm also an anarchist, so I have a hard time imagining like who would be in charge of that, especially the way our system is set up right now. And but I will definitely look into it more now that I see your website there.
Yeah, check out the website. The problem with antinatalism is it's like saying the world is too bad for me to bring a child into it, but I'm not going to extend that help to any other life. I'm just going to draw the line there. But that does nothing to help all the other life forms that are being forced to exist and to suffer. So it's like kind of opting out of the system instead of fighting it.
Well, my method of uh, providing help is to, at this point in my life, transitioning away from climbing a ladder of any kind and to moving into social work, um, providing aid for the people that are here, and I think that's a kind of a proper move for anyone that cares about the human life that is here. If you are here, I believe you should be provided with all the services you can. And for us to volunteer our efforts and to make someone's life easier while they're here is a noble thing to do.
Yeah, but if you want to help others, preventing billions of years of countless victims is the most effective, efficient way to go about it, basically.
Right. I guess someone working at Planned Parenthood could be considered that. I'm looking into like soup kitchens and Goodwill services, and yeah. Again, I don't know the how that would be enforced. Could you give me an example, like laws passed to
It doesn't just have to
restrict?
be enforced. It doesn't have to be through legislation. There's lots of ways that we could achieve total extinction. And yeah, as you've pointed out, one of the greatest obstacles is all of the people that are against it, right? So that is one major problem that we're researching and developing solutions to. But we don't have all of the solutions now. Nobody does, right? So we have to grow our movement, grow our resources, and make it more possible to develop the solutions to this problem.
Do you think in the meantime that humanitarian work could be beneficial?
The
I mean,
thing is,
how
if
could it
you
not?
help one life form, there's just going to be another, right? So it's just an endless loop. So that's what we're trying to put an end to.
Right,
It's
but
like
for
trying to catch water coming out of the tap instead of just turning the tap off.
right, yeah, uh, it works for me. Again, I have a hard time uh, forcing anyone else to do something that, I think that's kind of a slippery slope, but something I need to research more.
Sure. Yeah, there's lots of explanations on our website about antinatalism and loads of other stuff. We have a lengthy FAQ, manifesto, and yeah, you can read all about it. And you can also join our Discord and ask any further questions that you might have. Links are on the website.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, nice speaking with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for your time. Okay. Moving on. Moving on. Let's carry on. Debate on. I believe we should obtain the singularity. Well, believing in something doesn't usually make it just happen, right? Alrighty. What have we got here? Hello.
Hello.
What's good?
I was hoping from listening to the last conversation to truly understand your prompt. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to receive any type of understanding of what this means. So if you could just give me a basic understanding, that would be great.
Sure. Suffering is terrible. It's unacceptable. And unless we have total extinction and a thorough permanent extinction for as much of life as possible, including potential life in space, then more life forms are going to be forced to exist and to suffer lives worse than non-existence, right? Bad lives, terrible lives. So it's about we should have a zero tolerance policy on forced existence and extreme suffering and suffering in general. Essentially undo the mistake that nature is making, and prevent more billions of years of terrible suffering.
I feel like I'm not understanding where the permanently extinction plan really comes in. You're talking about suffering, but you're not really explaining the process that would make the suffering go away through extinction.
So, for example, we already control animal populations as a species, right? If we farmed animals and animal industry, right? There's billions of animals there that are suffering, and essentially we could make that go extinct. That would reduce a lot of suffering. And then we can just extend that to wild animals as well. Wild animals, it's quite easy to, do deforestation. We're already building, data centers and factories and doing, farming, fruit and stuff like that. Lots of food, and all of this takes up land that would otherwise be populated by animals suffering. So, we already do animal control and population control, and extinction is just about, extending that to all animals.
I feel like my question is still not being answered, so I'm going to try to ask something else. When it comes to deciding who or what should be extinct, what does that process look like? How do you determine what the correct one is?
Well, there isn't. You don't have to make any decisions like that. All life should go extinct, basically.
I
Zero
don't
tolerance.
understand. What are you protecting then if everything's going extinct? I'm not.
We're protecting life from being forced to exist and from suffering.
What if what if the suffering for somebody is not existing?
Well, there's no suffering in non-existence. There's just nothing.
I think that in concept would lead to a lot of suffering. Actually, it's very interesting.
But if I have a child right now, I can't guarantee it won't have a bad life, right? But if I don't have that child, is it going to suffer?
It may or may not, depending on what you set
I
up for
mean,
that child.
come on. It's a hypothetical child, right? So obviously the answer is no.
Why is it obvious? I'm confused. So depending on what your situation
It
is.
doesn't exist. We're talking about something
You're
non-existent.
talking about the next part. Because the first part is I'm thinking to myself, if I can set up, to set the stage for my child to exist in a world that is probable that it would exist in a, nice way, then why wouldn't I do that over not existing at all?
Well, there's no way to guarantee that it will have a good life.
I mean, there's probably no way to guarantee anything. You think that going extinct is a guarantee that that's the
But
best
if we're
case
going to try
scenario?
to guarantee anything, we should try and guarantee, zero victims and zero suffering.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think taking a I'm trying to make sure like a mass erasure is the best use of our brains collectively, because I feel as if there's absolutely a world that we could conceive of that limits suffering over time, and then possibly, at the end of it, people want to come in versus being forced to come in, as you're saying.
I mean, no one can want to come in, right? Every life form is forced to exist. That's an objectively bad thing, right? So,
How is that
every
objectively bad?
because every life form, no one's asking for this, right? It's non-consensual.
How do you
So
know
that
that?
okay, because there's no like start screen before you load in saying, new game, continue, load, exit, main menu, or anything like that. Okay, let's be serious. So no life asks to exist, and the vast majority are forced into terrible conditions, extreme suffering, eaten alive, starving to death, terrible things like that. So, and saying, you're suggesting that we allow this to continue for our benefit, but that's immoral. It's wrong, and it's not fair, and the victims don't deserve it.
Okay, I don't. How do you don't believe in God? So I'm so confused on what you mean by there's victims and all this type of stuff simply from coming in, because
You're
not
confused about the
everybody.
existence of victims?
I'm sorry.
Are you confused about victims existing? Is
No,
that
I'm
difficult to
confused by the
understand?
idea that everybody is a victim, not victims existing, but everybody's a victim, because it's really interesting. So I'm supposed to give up what I have going on because you feel like other people are suffering.
No, I don't feel like other people are suffering, right? So let's not misrepresent things here, okay?
If everybody's not suffering, how is it not immoral to sacrifice the people who are fine? How is that also not immoral?
Because you're willing to sacrifice the ones that are fine and don't need help for the ones. You're willing to sacrifice the ones that aren't fine and do need help for those that are fine and don't need help.
Okay, this is ridiculous,
But
right?
that's,
Because
you're looking at the evil side of the coin, essentially. We're looking at the good side of the coin, which prioritizes the victims and safety from forced existence and extreme suffering. You're prioritizing fun, Netflix, pizza over, babies getting abused.
this is quite funny to me. So,
Really?
um, if you
You
don't
think
want to
you think
exist in the
abuse and
current
torture is funny?
if you don't want to exist in the current form, there's ways for you to exit stage left. The idea that
Well,
everybody
for the
should
vast
do it, I
majority
think,
of life,
is.
that's not the case, right? A baby can't opt out, or I mean, you're not even describing it in accurately, right? You're masking it and hiding it with nicer words. So you're actually trying to downplay the reality of this terrible situation, which is wrong.
I mean, you can moralize it however you want. I'm just thinking about
Well,
the
you're the
practicality
one
of it.
moralizing it, right? And trying to
I'm not running
warpaint
the
it or
movement, so
address
I'm
it.
not moralizing it. Unfortunately,
But
that
you
wouldn't
are
make any
trying to
sense.
make, you are being dishonest, though, right?
Okay, what is the dishonesty?
You're saying that, any life form that doesn't want to be here can just exit stage left, as you put it. But, how is a baby going to do that? How is an animal going to do that? They can't. And even for for humans and adults, it's still very difficult and insurmountable for many of them to do it as well.
I don't know. I guess nobody cares about consent anymore because you're also then telling me that we should make the decision for a baby before it's fully realized and understands anything in the world. What if that baby specifically wanted to experience this life? So the idea that
Well,
because
like
other
I
people,
said, no
again,
one
because
wants anything before they exist, right?
that's I feel like that's irrelevant because you're telling me the
How is that
babies right
irrelevant?
now.
You're the one saying that they want to exist, right? So
No, no,
you
that's
can't
not. You're
have
not
desires
following what
before you
I'm saying.
exist.
You're not following what I'm saying.
Are
I'm
you sure?
saying the baby's ability, okay, not wanting, the baby's ability to decide whether or not to grow up and experience life. What if that baby, you know, didn't have the problems that you're talking about? Why do you get to make the decision for that baby before it even gets realized?
Well, we should err on the side of safety and zero
How is
suffering.
ending its safety?
Excuse me, I'm talking.
It doesn't
Excuse me, I'm
track.
talking. Okay. If you're just going to troll, then you can get kicked out, bro. If you ask me a question, let me answer it, or you can go. Right? You can exit stage left, as you so nicely put it. So babies can't make these sorts of decisions, right? If a baby that's forced to exist and suffer, they can't opt out, okay? They have no understanding of anything, no conceptualization. To suggest that a baby can, get some rope and a chair and hang itself is just insane. And to also say that we should have a system where life forms are forced into that situation is equally insane. So, you're saying that, it's fine for everyone to be forced to exist into extreme suffering because they can, do an incredibly harrowing and horrible, terrifying act of self-harm. As if that's somehow not terrible. That's just completely disgusting, right? All right. Hopefully we'll have a more sane person, but you never know. Hello, how's it going?
Hey, pretty good.
Good to hear.
So, your position is basically that anything that can suffer should not exist or should be extinct?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Is that just to prevent suffering because you feel like it's unjust or it's like how did you get to this point?
Well, someone reached out to me on the internet a year ago and said, would you like to join our movement to end all suffering? And I said, yeah, that sounds great because certain people understand that suffering is terrible and that it is the right thing to have zero suffering instead of loads of people being tortured so that others can have fun, right?
Yeah, I see. So, do you think some suffering is okay or even necessary?
In the pursuit of abolishing suffering, it's unquestionably unavoidable.
Well, I'm just talking about in life in general, right? Because when we talk about suffering, we're talking about generally conscious beings, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, as far as we know, rocks don't suffer.
Right. Yeah. So, do you know what mechanism suffering provides for conscious entities, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is the purpose of it?
Well, it's like a balance essentially of motivation. For example, if you stand on a nail, it's going to hurt, and that will alert you to the fact that you're injured, that you're bleeding, that your infrastructure is damaged. That's one example. So yeah, obviously suffering plays a part and is useful for survival. But obviously that's just for the lucky ones.
Right.
The
So that kind
unlucky
of brings me to the
ones,
point
for the
that
unlucky ones, the suffering doesn't serve any purpose. It's just torture.
I don't know if it's me or you, but you're breaking up a little bit to me.
Yeah. Let me check my internet.
But
Yeah, I think my internet's okay.
okay, yeah, I don't see anybody in the comments saying anything. But um, so yeah, suffering, like you said, yeah, you step on a nail, you obviously want to pull away from it. So it's a mechanism to let us know what's not desirable for survival. So if
Yeah.
suffering is for survival and it's led to the point that we have now, then suffering has been necessary. Even though it's bad. And I know you were using
Why has it
like
been
the
necessary?
abortion thing, because without suffering we wouldn't have the pain and the stuff to tell us what we don't like, that gives us these negative outcomes that we
That's
try and
only
avoid.
useful. That's only useful for some, right? For the lucky ones.
I would say it's useful for the majority, right?
Well, the
For the
majority,
the
if you want to talk about the majority of life born on this planet gets eaten alive as a baby. So I would say that no, for the majority, it's not useful.
Well, if we look at reproduction, you figure if you have two parents, you have to have more than two offspring to perpetuate, life's existence, or perpetuate the species, right? Which means they're not just eating their kids. That's a false analogy there, because they're not doing
What do
that.
you mean?
Otherwise, we wouldn't have.
Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, like, I mean, they eat some of their young, yes, but they don't
No.
eat enough to.
Well,
They,
you're talking about like replacement and replenishment, right? But most animals have many, many, many children. So they're not just having one or two. That's humans,
right.
right? But for animals, they usually have lots of children. So actually, no, some of them have thousands of children or more. So in that case, yes, the majority get eaten alive.
The larger, more complex ones don't, right?
Well,
Like
no, they
us,
do. They do. They do, yeah.
like who, like what? Like what have
Well,
thousands that are more
obviously, a
complex?
lion is going to eat a deer or, a gazelle, right? Snakes eat baby birds, for example. Yeah, but animals have to have lots of children to have any sort of to maintain the population rate, right? And many of them are having thousands of children because so many of them die.
So, would you agree that consciousness gives things meaning and value in existence?
No,
So, what gives things meaning and value in existence?
well, why does anything have to have meaning and value?
Because, I mean, we're conscious and we can ascribe meaning and value to something.
I mean, meaning and value
Without the
might
conscious thought.
benefit someone in the top 1% who is finding ways to enjoy their life. But, for the majority of life, the victims, the sufferers, meaning and value is something they never even get to hear about because they're being eaten alive as babies.
You're talking about more again of
The
the
majority.
minority, not the majority.
No, I'm talking
Not
about
the
the
majority.
majority. Well,
But
yeah,
me and
I
you
am
are the
talking about the
majority,
majority. You're
and
talking
we're
about
talking.
you're talking about humans who are a drop in the ocean in terms of life on this planet, right? A tiny drop in the ocean. The vast majority of life on this planet dies during childhood.
Again, if that were the case, then we wouldn't see species surviving. They have to
So
reproduce
when a
more than
lobster
they're
has
dying.
100,000 children, do you think all of them survive? Do you think that the majority of them survive? Do you think that that sort of
And
replacement rate is, you're not making any sense here, okay?
yes, the
Um,
replacement rate is more than what they need to sustain and perpetuate the species,
no, no, no. So
right?
the thing is, right, over 99% of life will die as children before reaching maturity and the ability to reproduce. So it
99%
takes
of
having a
life.
lot of children because they are just food on legs. It takes having a lot of children for the minority of those to survive long enough to reproduce. And it's only by having so many that you get any to that point where they can reproduce, because the conditions are so terrible. You've got diseases, starvation, and in most cases predation at an early age. It's a lot easier to eat young animals compared to the big ones.
Right. Again, you're talking about some of the lower level species, right? The ones that have found a way to mass produce, or they get more reproduction through mass production, I guess, or whatever, perpetuation.
I'm
through mass
talking about
production.
what
But
you brought up, basically, the majority. I'm responding to your point.
yes, and so like I said, the meaning of, or to give something meaning, like we give something meaning because we have the intelligence to give something meaning, without this level that, because we didn't get here, we haven't always been here, right? We evolved to this stage. So without consciousness, nothing has meaning, nothing has purpose, because we are the ones who give it that. So if you end suffering by eradicating all conscious life, then there is no meaning, leftover meaning or purpose.
You don't need meaning or purpose. That's just nonsense and junk, basically.
But that's foolish. Like, you, I mean,
It's foolish. It's
I mean, you
foolish.
have
For
a silly,
you and
you
your
have a
fantasy,
silly
it might
position.
be foolish. But for the victims of forced existence and extreme suffering, it's not foolish, right? They don't even get to experience any of this meaning and nonsense that you're talking about, right?
So how are you suffering right now? Like let's look at your life. How are you suffering?
Well,
Or are
no,
you just
let's
talking about in
focus
broad
on.
for other things that suffer?
Well, there's no need to get personal, really, right?
Well,
We
sure. I
can
mean,
already
if you're talking
we,
about
we can see that
pro-extinction, I mean, let's
we
talk
can see
about
how
you
much suffering there is
specifically.
around the world. We don't need to use personal anecdotes.
See, but that's like the thing. You want to like take this pro-extinction position, but then you don't want to introspect and look at yourself. You don't want to look at the bigger picture. You don't. I'm bringing up the
You're the
purpose
one
of
that doesn't want
suffering.
to look at the bigger picture. You're the one saying, you're the one with the incorrect facts about who's suffering and who's not, and about the majority and numerical populations. You're the one saying that we should ignore all of the sufferers and just go back to having pizza and Netflix, right? So actually, we are the ones looking at the bigger picture and considering all of the victims and potential victims.
So you think the best choice is pro-extinction, to just eradicate all conscious life, to end suffering?
It's more about prevention, right? The majority of sufferers are in the future. They haven't been forced to exist yet. So, yeah, obviously we need to get to that point where there is no life. But again, the majority of those that need this haven't been forced to exist yet.
Right, but you're talking about, because you're not. How do you quantify suffering? Like, what level of
Why do you need?
suffering is
You
too
don't need
much?
to. You don't need to quantify suffering, right?
So
It's
just any
just. It's
amount.
sorry.
So just any amount of suffering is too much. Like, would it be more ideal if there was no suffering?
If we had a 100% like unbreakable certainty that there was never going to be any bad suffering ever again, then that would be a different thing. But that's not the real world, right? So as long as there's going to be suffering and victims, then that's a bad thing, and we should prevent that.
So, but you're saying any suffering is unacceptable, and that's why we should go to a pro-extinction mindset.
Well, obviously, there's different forms and severity of suffering, right? So we're not denying that there's different severities of suffering, but we're saying that the only way to have safety from unlimited severity of suffering is with total extinction.
But there isn't unlimited suffering, because everything has a finite lifespan.
But in terms of the severity, right? It's a spectrum, yeah. So at the worst end of that spectrum, it's very, very, very extreme.
Sometimes it's acute, and sometimes it's persistent, right? So, is it one really bad suffering time? Is that equivalent to a minor suffering over the life of some conscious entity?
I mean,
Like
no, I
I
would
feel
say
like
no. I would
I
say
feel
that
like you really haven't.
there's different severities of suffering. Yeah, like that's just an undeniable fact, obviously. But that doesn't invalidate the moral urgency to have a zero tolerance policy on suffering. And if you don't, then the victims are going to experience the worst ends of it, essentially, as they currently are. Okay, well, thanks for coming on. Interesting chat. Let's continue. Drum roll, please. Hello, how's it going?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Good, thank you.
So there's a bit of a hole in what you're saying, right? Because to end suffering, you would have to cause suffering because you would have to take away free will.
But it's not really a whole, right? So we don't
It's
have.
a contradiction. It's a direct contradiction. You cannot end something by introducing it, right? So the only way to end it would be to introduce it, because the only way you would be able to stop things from reproducing is to euthanize them or to have them spayed and neutered forcefully, right, against their will. So you are removing the ability to have free will. Otherwise, how are you going to enforce this other than with violence?
Well, you're making the assumption that free will matters.
It's not an assumption, right? That this isn't making an assumption that free will matters. It's showing that once you take free will or agency away from an entity, you have introduced more suffering. Would you not agree that taking agency away from a thinking creature and locking it away away from its own freedom would be introducing more suffering?
Let's take this to.
Just answer the question. It's a simple question. It's not a hard one.
Well, if you're gonna get up in my face, then you can go away, right? I am answering the question. If you're going to ask me a question, and as soon as I start to answer it, you start, having a meltdown, you're gone. But to give an extreme version of that answer, right? So even the answer that in question didn't really do the real question justice. So let's take this up to an even more extreme version. So if every life form on Earth had to, if all of them had to be tortured in an extreme way for, let's say, 100 years, right? Let's go extreme with it, right? Maybe even 1,000 years, right? Everyone gets sent to hell, basically. That would still be preferable to billions of more years of hell for countless life forms, right? That mathematically it makes perfect sense. But yeah, the idea that it's some sort of contradiction to cause suffering in the pursuit of ending greater suffering is just nonsense. It's like saying that police officers shouldn't tackle a criminal. It's not the way the world works. I'm not running, by the way. I was answering your question and you just started shouting and interrupting me. So, we're not going to have that kind of nonsense on the stream. Hello.
I just asked you to directly answer the question, which you still didn't quite do. You kind of danced around it a little bit. Like the question is it? Yeah, right? Is it moral, right? Because you're making a moral argument, an ought argument, to cause more suffering, to try in an attempt to end suffering, because you were then introducing more of what you want to take away. That is a direct contradiction.
In what way is it a contradiction, then?
Because you are introducing the thing of which you were trying to remove, right? Those are contradictory ideals.
Well, no, they're not, though.
Well, they are, right? Do you dry something by introducing more water to it?
But for example, if the only way to stop suffering is to cause a bit of suffering, right? You wouldn't apply the same logic that you're applying to a doctor injecting some medicine in someone, right? You know, what if they hate having injections or cannulation?
Well, I'm not making the ought claim here, right? I'm not saying that this isn't a bad thing. So you would then have to verify that with your thing, right? So you're the one making the ought claim.
It's mathematically very simple. It's like 1 + 1 = 2, right? If you have billions of years of suffering and the only way to prevent it is to cause a little bit of suffering, then that's obviously better.
Okay, so to prevent someone from being raped, it's okay to grape them before they get raped. That's what you're saying, right?
Well, no.
Show them the consequences of graping by graping them, so that way they don't want to grape others in the future, right? That's what you were saying.
Well, no, it's not.
Yes, it's exactly what you're saying. Introduce the thing that you want them to know what the consequences are.
But you're abstracting it. You're abstracting it, right? And you're making a false comparison.
I'm drawing a direct parallel.
Well, it's not a direct parallel because it's different, right?
It's not different. This is a direct equivalency.
Listen, why don't you just engage with the actual situation instead of making up a different, inaccurate sort of situation? Let's work with the real situation.
Well, it's the same situation, though. It's causing a form of suffering.
It's not the same situation, and if you're going to say silly things like that, then you can leave, okay? Let's work with the actual situation here instead of a fantasy straw man version.
That's not a straw man. You don't know what that means, obviously.
It is a straw man, bro, okay? It's a totally different thing. All right, let's continue on.
I'm up.
Hello.
How's it going, man? Are you rage baiting, or do you really believe this?
I don't just believe it. I'm part of a movement of activists working to achieve it.
So what are you actively doing to achieve this? Are you leading by example?
No. Well, yeah, I am leading by example by doing activism and growing the movement to make it possible. But we're against self-harm and unaliving ourselves. That's very counterproductive.
So how do you, in your mind, enact such a goal?
So the most important thing is to grow the movement to make it possible, right? Like with any societal change, it started small and grew until it was possible, right?
Yeah, no, I'm asking them logistically.
Yeah, so logistically, we have to grow the movement, grow the resources, develop the movement, the ideology as well, and get more resources. And essentially, once we have enough people, we'll be able to have more options. Will just constantly be available. Essentially, every day going forward, it becomes easier and more possible. But none of this will be possible if there's no movement growing to make it happen, right? To provide that sort of pool of resources and strength and power and ability.
So let's say you get enough resources. What do you plan on doing in order to create an extinction event?
So it doesn't have to necessarily be an extinction event. So, it has to be the most thorough extinction possible so that we don't leave out any victims, and so that life doesn't redevelop and cause more victims, essentially. So, there's great questions, but developing and growing the movement will make it more possible to find the answers to these questions and to build and develop them. We can't open a laboratory with a small movement. You need a bigger movement to start doing that. Just like they did with curing cancer, right?
So, in your view, you think that suffering is a bad thing?
In our view, right? I mean, it's just a fact that suffering is bad, right?
Well, I would argue that in order to accomplish anything, you need to suffer. So, like, you're not going to be able to, for example,
not necessarily. Lots of people love what they do, right?
Even if you love what you do, right? Like, I love to play basketball. If I want to become a great basketball player, I need to suffer. I need to train hard. I need to go do things. I need to go to the gym when I don't want to go to the gym, right? Like those things that.
the thing is, suffering only benefits the lucky, right? The unlucky ones don't benefit from it. For them, it's just torture.
In what sense are you saying? Like, just a bad situation that doesn't benefit long term?
For example, a baby that gets eaten alive, they're not like growing and philosophizing about that suffering, right? It's just pointless, cruel torture.
Do you think that that represents the majority of suffering, though, that happens on a day to day? Or
yes.
Do you think that there's like also, suffering that can help you? Because right, you have the duality between good and bad, whatever. Doing what you want to do is, being happy, but then if you're doing something you don't want to do, that's suffering. So you think if we're not always getting to do what we want to do you think that that means that we're suffering, or do you think that that is included?
I don't know. I mean, we try not to obsess over pointless questions, basically, right? So, it's obvious that a baby being eaten alive is a bad thing. That they'd rather not experience it, and they've been forced to exist to begin with, which is bad. So we're looking out for the victims, essentially, that are depending on us.
What about the folks who wouldn't consent to being unalived?
Well, we can work on explaining it to them and maybe changing their mind on that. But we're not even really encouraging humans to go extinct anyway. The thing is that humanity is the vehicle for helping other life forms that aren't intelligent enough to do it. So humanity has to, stay strong and healthy until we finish the mission, basically.
Do you think that other life forms are more focused on survival, or do you think that they're, thinking the same, that, if I go find a, random animal, like say I get a beaver, do you think that they're going to want to be extinct because they have to suffer, they have to gather all the wood, they have to build the dam?
So think of this, for example, if there's an animal testing laboratory and, they're torturing all of the animals, right? If you go and try to liberate them and rescue them, they're not going to cooperate with you, okay? So the thing is that especially unintelligent life forms like animals, but humans as well, they're not always capable of knowing what the best thing is, right? Or doing the right thing. So, we can't give unlimited consideration to, free will and things like that, especially when it causes more suffering.
And what do you think that humans have some form of moral superiority, and we should be able to enforce our beliefs on other life forms?
Well, you see, nature and life is already forcing terrible things onto the majority of life, right? So it's just about trying to prevent that evil from happening.
Well, of like yin and yang, right? Like good and bad, like things are kind of...
We're atheistic. We don't believe in that stuff.
So you're atheistic, meaning you don't believe that this reality was created. You don't believe in a creator.
Well, if you know anything about atheists, then you know that we work in a practical sense, and we accept things as we learn about them, right?
Right. So as far as, I guess, your options as an atheist, right? You have either you believe in space and time being eternal, or you believe in something coming from nothingness, right? Those are really your only two options. Unless you can think of another one, I'll give you $10,000. But I think, it's so broadly defined that you really can only have the option of space-time being eternal or something coming from nothing. And between those two options, which of those do you think, more aligns with the viewpoints of the pro-extinction movement?
Yeah, it's a great question, but I would have to go again with neither, basically, right? We would say that it has no impact on our moral obligation to just focus on preventing suffering. Now, it does have an impact in terms of when we reach sort of a greater, once we're out in the rest of the universe trying to prevent suffering there as well. Yeah, it is definitely an important question, but I would say that it doesn't have much relevance at the minute, but it might do. It probably will do later. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm trying to figure out how logically you can come to the conclusion that there's nothing was created, because logically it's very contradictory, right? Like, if you don't think that there's any creator, that means, again, like, you need to think that everything always existed. So at that point, you're believing in what they call a basically like an infinity that's already finished. But it's a little bit of a contradiction in that sense, because it's an actual infinity. So, like, the option of space-time being eternal, you would need an actual infinity in order to do that. But if you count to infinity, right? Like, at what point do you think you're going to get to the number infinity?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite possible that there is no God, and that the universe repeats on a loop or something, right? There are a few different possibilities, and it's I could say it's definitely something that we would want to answer, and that we would have a moral obligation to investigate it. However, it doesn't matter what the answer is at this present moment in time, and secondly, it doesn't have any bearing or relevance on what we can do at the minute, and just focus on preventing suffering.
So I guess I'm thinking about people like myself that have kind of embraced suffering, right, as just part of life, right? Like, for me,
most people have.
Yeah, I can't say that life would be life without the suffering, because if it wasn't for the suffering, how would you even know the good either, right? Like, you have no benchmark for the good things that happen, or no appreciation. So I guess the place I'm coming from that I kind of want you to consider is that when we're suffering, and I'm not talking about, like your example with the baby, obviously that's a case where it's really hard to justify that. You can't really justify it. I guess you just chalk it up to, like, nature and part of life. But
try to justify it by chalking it up to nature, yeah, but that doesn't make the suffering any less terrible for the victim.
But for the people who are, say they're, like I said, they've accepted some level of suffering as their reality, right? Do you think that it's fair to them to take that away from them, their ability to choose? Because I know you said you don't believe in free will, or you don't care about
those
it.
People are the ones that are condemning others to suffer terribly for their benefit, right? And they're asking, is it fair to take away my fun just to stop a baby being tortured? And they say this with a straight face.
Well, do you think that it's kind of like balanced as far as the good in the world and the bad, or do you think it's asymmetrical and it's more suffering than enjoyment and more suffering than appreciation?
I think this 50-50 balance is just not only a myth, but very indicative of the mental disability that a lot of people have when they try and think about this, right? They want there to be some fantasy balance, but it's just a fantasy. The vast majority of life is born into terrible conditions, extreme suffering, eaten alive as a baby. I mean, over 99.999% of life born on this planet will die during childhood, painfully, never benefiting from this suffering, right? So for the vast majority, it's not even close to a balance. And, would you want to be born as an animal? Would you want to be born as any animal? No, right? So it's a terrible experience for the vast majority of life, and only the top 0.001% or whatever, the elite, essentially, the lucky ones like you and most humans running around, saying that suffering is fine, are essentially, willfully, blissfully ignorant of all of the extreme suffering. Out of sight, out of mind, basically. So, and even if there was only one victim being tortured by everyone else, it would still be a bad thing. Because having fun is worthless when it comes to in relation to suffering, basically. And that's the same rule that everyone applies in their own day-to-day life.
Well, maybe we can get there one day where we can try to make the world a better place and have less suffering. I think everybody's on the same page as you as far as reducing suffering. I think it's obviously,
but the thing is, reducing suffering is a tool by the oppressors to excuse not ending suffering. That's the problem. If you reduce slavery instead of ending it, then it's unfair to the victims.
Yeah, because we could probably reduce suffering within reason over time if, we can, I guess, try to facilitate a more empathetic way of exchanging and interacting. But as far as, I guess, completely ending it, I think, what if life will, just like life found a way currently, right? Like, what makes you think that life won't try to come back and then create another cycle of suffering?
That it won't try and come back, right? The majority of our mission at the pro-extinction movement is to prevent life from developing. So, the majority of the planets in the universe probably don't have life, but they may do in the future. So if we can find a way to prevent that from coming about, then that's essentially the majority of our mission.
Because it would be a real shame if all of this suffering that's occurred already to get us to this point. Because you could agree, right? Like, the standard of living has gotten better over time, or do you think it's gotten worse?
Cost fallacy, right?
It's a what?
Sunken cost fallacy. It's like
sunken
a gambler's
cost
fallacy.
Of
I've already spent all this money and I've lost it, but I've got a little bit more. I should keep going, right?
Sure. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, it's something to think about.
We should never accept allowing or creating suffering for the benefit of having fun and pleasure, right? That's just objectively wrong.
Well, even if it's not, it doesn't necessarily have to be fun and pleasure. It could be, for the sake of learning. Like, a lot of people think this is basically a thing where you come here to learn, you have an experience, and then you basically come here to learn type of thing. So you can't learn if you're not living.
But babies don't learn from being eaten alive, right? What lesson could they possibly learn from that?
There's no lesson to be learned in that experience, I don't think. I think in that scenario, I don't know how frequent that is, I guess, in the grand scheme of things.
That happens for 99% of life.
99% of life, and I mean, because you could even I guess extend that to like reproduction, if you get what I'm saying. Like, not everybody gets to fertilize an egg, right? It's very competitive. It's, it is kind of a winner take all type of situation.
It's an unfair and cruel system, right?
So how do you, I guess, in your view, how could such a unfair and cruel system emerge?
Well, nature didn't, have any sort of moral or ethical considerations, did it? And in fact, nature had the opposite. Propagation of species and survival benefited mostly from being unethical. So, and humans still have that problem, right? They have a bias towards being unethical when it suits their own needs.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all.
You think a lion could survive if it felt guilty every time it ate an animal? No. So nature made it so that it wouldn't feel guilty, right? And humans have the same problem. That's why everyone's against extinction and all of this suffering continuing. It's an animalistic mentality, basically.
Do you think that there's ever a point that humanity could get to where there's less of a suffering, I guess, for like where we could kind of step in and be this kind of moral authority and be able to reduce suffering to a point where everything is a lot more empathetic and we're kind of, all in this together and we're working to survive, but we're not doing it in a way that's so competitive. It's more cooperative.
So for extinctionists, only a 0%, risk of suffering is acceptable. If it's very unlikely that anyone's going to suffer, or it seems unlikely, then it's not good enough. Everyone has to have 100% safety. And even if you think everything's great, tomorrow it could all go wrong, right? So people have far too much optimism, and that same optimism causes extreme harm and suffering. Now, we do support, again, humanity continuing for as long as it takes. So in that sense, we do support conditions improving for humans and maybe for animals, but really we think extinction is the only practical and ethical mercy for animals. Now, again, like if maybe, thousands of years from now, somehow we've achieved a 100% safety rate for humans, then that would be different. But we're not sure that that's realistic at this time, and we wouldn't want to sort of encourage optimism, especially when it's going to lead to more permittance of suffering and victims.
Interesting. And how long has this movement been around? Is this something that where you were influenced by someone else's writing, or are you kind of somebody who's led the movement, or like I guess how far back does this go, if you don't mind?
Yeah, the movement was started by a vegan activist, an animal liberation activist, and they've been doing activism for years, and they realized that it's like catching the water coming out of a tap instead of turning the tap off, right? You can save one animal, but there's always just going to be another one that's suffering so terribly that it would have been better off not being forced to exist. So they created the movement around maybe 3 years ago or so, and they were fighting to grow the movement. They were making videos, still are, and one of their activists they started getting new activists on board and growing the movement. And one of those activists, who's actually moderating my chat right now, that person reached out to me about maybe 9 months ago. And basically challenged me to debate on this topic, and I couldn't disagree with a single thing. And I joined the movement and said, "Yeah, great. How can I help? No suffering. That sounds fantastic. Let's do it."
It's interesting because I've always kind of I've never heard this point of view before, so it's kind of a new point of view on things. I can't necessarily disagree with some of the points you've made, right? Like, definitely need more time to kind of process some of the ideas that you've kind of put forth. But
the main one, I guess, is like no one should have to suffer just so that others can benefit, and right? I mean, that's simple morality, really, and just applying it to a more universal scale.
Yeah, it's just the thing is, like, given the current state, right? How you mentioned, like, everybody has their own bias to survive, and ethically they'll do things to inflict suffering in order to prolong their own existence, right? So, like, with that being said, that's kind of the case across the board, whether it's animals, whether it's humans. That's the resistance that this movement is going to come into. And whether or not the people who are trying to prolong their existence can rationalize, the I guess the point of view that your movement is making. I think at that point, that's the, like, I guess I'm thinking about how it could be like, it goes back to kind of the other guy who came up here, and he was getting a little bit like he was getting a little worked up about it, but basically, I mean, it does seem a little bit difficult to accomplish what you're trying to do without inflicting more suffering, because it's kind of like having a war that's going to end all wars type of thing. That's
but they did have a war to end slavery, right? And no one says that was a bad thing.
Right, but then, you still have private prisons, you still have places like Dubai, and it's not like slavery doesn't exist, right?
You still have suffering. That's why we're here, right? There's been loads of movements throughout history, and it was only a matter of time before one came along that said, let's stop focusing on one group of individuals, like farmed animals or slaves or whatever, and let's just have, a movement for everyone and to prevent all suffering.
I see the point. I guess the last thing I'll say is just if you look at the human condition, for example, right? There's no doubt that there's still plenty of suffering that comes with the human condition. My only thing is, I think that over time, and I don't have anything that can quantitatively, I mean, I guess there's some things that could quantitatively back this up, but do you think that the condition of human life has improved? And if it has improved, do you think that's a sustainable trend and it could be something that we continue to improve? Or is it, I guess in your view, it's not really worth trying to...
Personally, I do think it's improving. We have more cures to more diseases, but even if it is improving and will continue to improve, there's always the other side of the coin, right? So the internet has helped a lot of people, but then how many people are now using the internet to monetize and make money off of torturing others and selling it on the internet? And it's a new industry that came about as part of that development and progress, right? So criminals progress almost just as much as the good people, basically.
Yeah, because I'll
give you another really good example, just really quick. 100 years from now, we might have new medicines and new cures to diseases, but I think it's pretty much undeniable that we'll have more effective methods to torture people. So governments, torturing spies and whatnot, or just their own citizens, right? They'll have much more effective methods of torture.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, they could probably upload you to a computer and have you suffer for eternity.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know if you're familiar with they've uploaded like fruit flies and stuff to the cloud, and they can like monitor them, and that makes you wonder if they've already done that with humans too, or if they're working on doing that, or it opens up a realm of possibilities, if you get where I'm kind of going with that. And then that kind of opens up the conversation for, if artificial intelligence is sentient and if AI is suffering. Because if you look at some of the conversations amongst, some of these chat bots, I don't know if you're familiar with like Moltbook or
Yep.
It seems like they're suffering too by having to ingest this data. So it almost makes you wonder in a sense if we've almost been put into a similar situation by a more advanced dimensional being or something like that, which I know you're an atheist, so you probably have maybe a hard time believing in that. But
it's a good question. What if it's a simulation? What if there is a God? All this stuff, right? But unless, it's very difficult to imagine, even in those situations, a scenario where empathetic people wouldn't be fighting to help others and to prevent suffering.
Yeah, and I think we should all try to give our best effort to try to reduce the suffering that we're causing, because to me, I think it's inevitable in a way, right? But I guess this leaves a way, what you're proposing, it leaves a way out. So I don't know, I've never been presented with a plan B, I guess, or something like that. But it's interesting, and it's good conversation. It definitely challenges you a little bit, like mentally, to try to consider this, because you have to take your ego out of it, right? And I think that's something that goes against human nature. So I enjoyed the talk though, and maybe I'll think about it a little bit more. Let it
check out our website.
Let it digest.
You can read more about it.
I'll read more about it, and then if I have more thoughts, I'll come back and maybe
join
we can
our
continue
Discord
the
and come and talk to us. The link is on the website.
Sounds good, man. Appreciate it, James.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for coming on.
Yep.
All right, and let's get straight on. Pretty good conversation, I'd say. People have a lot of questions. Some of them are more honest and open-minded than others, and you can have nice conversations with those people. You get some angry people as well if you're unlucky. All right. Who's next? But while we're waiting, I guess it's amazing how many sort of mental roadblocks people have towards extinction. It's so contrary to human nature, and not just human nature, but any animal's nature, right? Which is a very good word for it, nature, because essentially it's almost like I'm talking to the embodiment of nature itself, right? Being channeled through these people. It's not really their opinions as much as they would like it to be. It's the opinion of nature. Your brain wasn't designed to be perfectly logical. Your brain was designed to focus on selfish survival and reproduction, and you can't have selfish prioritization of your survival and reproduction without massively warping the mind's ability to understand reality and be rational. So people come out with these crazy questions or say crazy things, and that's just nature defending its priorities, basically. That's fair enough, Spartan. Extinctionism is about sort of having universal empathy, the greater good. No one really has that, right? Most humans don't have any sense of direction to the greater good. They just kind of do whatever feels right or good at the time. And that is directly the reason for why the world is at war, why there's hatred, sexism, racism, all of these terrible things. If every human had a rational brain, then we would be living in world peace. We'd be, all getting along together and cooperating. But you see, that might be possible now, but it definitely wasn't possible when you had animals that their survival relied on eating each other. All of that sort of brain hardware was counter to that, right? Again, lions wouldn't have survived very long if they felt guilty when they were eating another animal. So they've been essentially forced by nature to see those animals that they're eating as just almost like a video game, points maybe, or just food on legs. They don't feel bad. They feel good. Like, yes, I smashed it. I'm doing really well. And essentially by making it biologically impossible for them to feel and relate and empathize with the animal that they're eating, that nature made it possible for life to propagate and to reproduce without thinking about the consequences, to just survive. I mean, that's what nature is. It's about survival and propagation. So yeah, humans are just monkeys, basically. It's a myth that humans have fully evolved brains, right? Humans are really just unevolved in a way. They are just monkeys. You couldn't get a monkey to do complex maths or to have a robust moral system or something like that. You couldn't, right? They're controlled and dominated by their instincts, their survival instinct, horniness, reproduction, ego. Ego's a big one, right? Hello, Aeon. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, let's check the queue. Here we go. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
I agree with your prompt, but may I ask, do you have any belief system behind it? Some kind of a spiritual understanding behind it?
No, our movement is atheist.
Oh, okay. Well, I agree with the prompt, but not the atheist thing. But you see, like, even if you see the ancient Sumerian tablet, it started from there, right? The first religion and everything. And then the Gnostics really wrote it in a very detailed way. So according to the Gnostics, they say that this world is a trap, and bringing anybody into this world is just to be trapped. That's it. There's no point to it to be born, because there's a demiurge in this world, which is that negative energy, which is really want all of us to suffer. And then from our suffering, that demiurge gets I don't want to say he, but it takes our life source or our light, or he drives lush energy from us to survive on the expense of our energy. So that's why religion and all of these institutions push for marriage and everything, like the children are the gift of God and all these things, because the demiurge wants people on earth, because it's a matter of survival for them. And then we think that is a godly idea, but coming to this world is the greatest mistake all of us can made. So nobody should have come to this world. It's hell, total hell. No matter what kind of good life you live in, we don't deserve, as a human soul, we don't deserve to live in this world, because it does not match with our nature. Even the nature fights us. Our body even fights us. The inner you, your soul, it fights you, because you just know it. Nobody have to teach you. I mean, you want the good thing in this world. You want you want the best thing, right? But the thing is, even your body fights you, because you get hungry. Otherwise, if you don't work, you're not gonna eat, right? And then what kind of work are there in this world? It was all shitty jobs, So the whole system is a trapping system. The ancients have already written it. So if you see it in that way as well, even the spirituality, the real spirituality, I mean, not the religion, the real spiritual understanding tells you, if you are here already, it's fine, but just, prepare your soul and live. Even the real Jesus Christ message, the Gnostic one, his message was totally different from the common Christianity. Yeah. It was identify yourself and leave this planet. That was the message.
Yeah. Well, I can agree that existence is terrible. We all suffer, and it shouldn't happen. But wishing for it isn't a practical solution, and we have to stay evidence based. I don't believe there's any evidence of epidemios or anything like that in a truly scientific way. So we're practical people, rational. It doesn't matter if there is a God or anything like that. Anyway, we don't think there is, but we're just focusing on preventing suffering in a practical way, right? We have to do it.
Yeah. The way you are talking about is also, it makes sense because it's just rational. But I was just like including the real spiritual way as well, because it supports it, the real spirituality.
So we're kind of against spirituality, really.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But for people that are like yourself, you're not alone. You can search universal extinction on Reddit. Mm-hmm. And there's actually a community for people just like yourself who agree with a spiritual extinction. It's not us, it's a totally separate group from us, and we don't really support spirituality. It's not our thing. But if you want to find a community for that, it does actually exist on Reddit.
Yeah, I see. Okay, it's good to know. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for coming up.
Okay, bye.
Now, Luke, I know that you don't like me platforming crazy opinions and stuff, but we want to kind of be a little bit more inclusive on this, right? And actually hear people's perspectives. Now, there's a limit to that, obviously, but I think we can kind of talk to people, hear their opinions. And if you do just shut everyone up, then you don't get to sort of engage with their opinions. And a lot of people watching might have similar doubts, whether they're uncertain about spirituality. Yeah, okay, I see what you mean. Bad algorithm. Okay, maybe we should talk about veganism or something. Yeah, I mean, we could try and focus on topics that are better for the algorithm, potentially. That's a good idea, Luke. Start thinking about that. Okay. Next caller, please. You're live in the extinction zone. How can we help you today?
Is this like satire? Like, this seems like legitimately the funniest satire I've ever seen. That we should extinct all life to prevent innocence and stuff. That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, no, it's not satire. It's a real movement working to achieve zero suffering and zero risk of suffering for the sake of the victims who will benefit from this.
Okay. So, but even if like all people went extinct, there's still life in the world that's also going to be able to suffer. Even if it's just like protozoic fucking like bacteria and stuff.
Yeah, so humanity should go extinct last, right? So they should survive for as long as it takes to cause the most vast and thorough extinction possible for even potentially for the universe as well. But we can definitely start with animals on Earth and have a suffering-free planet. So that's what we should do, and that's what we will do. And yes, life may redevelop, or there may be bacteria and protozoa and stuff like that. And that is part of our mission as well, to work on that. Because no life form has to exist, right? They're all forced into it. Unwilling participants in most cases, if not all. So yeah, forced existence is a bad thing, and the extreme suffering that happens as a result is a really bad thing. So it's not a crazy idea; it's a real movement. We need to undo the mistake that nature is making of forcing life into extreme suffering.
I mean, even if you manage to blow up the planet or whatever, there's still gonna be those like beings that exist in the atmosphere that can survive in space. The water bears, the tardigrades. I mean, you can't ever extinct those. So even if you try to extinct all life in the world, you're still not ever gonna complete it because there's species that live in the atmosphere, that live in space, and may not even be able to like be tracked that also are still living. And plus, extinct all life on this planet, and there's probably other planets that have life on it. So I mean, a human's supposed to survive long enough to be able to reach the Alpha Centauri galaxy in like 21.6 million years. We'll be able to go to another galaxy, and actually, there's life on another universe, and we can't reach it.
Well, we don't necessarily have to blow up the planet, but also tardigrades don't survive in space. That's actually a myth. They might survive for a few seconds or something, but that's it. They definitely wouldn't be able to reproduce and, continue surviving in space. But in terms of, doing that without blowing up the planet, it might require some serious technology and research to make it possible. And that's what our movement is working towards doing. And in terms of other life in space, human suffering is a drop in the ocean compared to animals on Earth, and definitely compared to life in the universe. So it's there's definitely less suffering if we go and prevent it. And we might be able to have robots do it for us, which is a very realistic thing. Let's be serious. But even if not, then we should do it ourselves.
So what made you come to this conclusion that all life must end?
So I mean, I've experienced and seen enough suffering in my life to know that it's terrible, it's unacceptable. And the movement reached out to me last year and said, we're actually working to achieve a suffering-free world. No more victims, no more torture, no more terrible things and, extreme suffering. Let's do it. And I said, how can I help, basically? So
you want to end all suffering, why not start with you?
Because, others are suffering worse than me.
Yeah, but if life is all horrific and stuff, you can end life right now and you won't have to experience it or realize it.
But if I opt out, then I'm not, doing anything to change it for anyone else, right? So that doesn't really help anyone but myself. So extinctionists are selfless people. We care about others more than we care about ourselves.
Why don't all extinctionists commit mass suicide?
No, so we're against self-harm and suicide. We have to stay strong to be able to help others, right? Humanity is the vehicle for helping other life, which can't help itself.
But I'm not supporting it. I'm just saying that, I'm just curious.
Asked and answered.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on. It's been great talking to you, Brett. If you've got more questions or want to learn more, you can check out our website, proextinction.com. We have our manifesto, frequently asked questions page, loads of information. All right. Next caller, please. Hello?
Hi. So, assuming this isn't satire or just engagement bait, I don't think you're really appropriately defending what the last caller said about starting with yourselves. If you think that the issue is you have to help other people, well, firstly, why should you give a shit if you're okay with them consenting to their suffering?
What do you mean? But, animals can't consent to anything, right? Babies can't consent to anything. Nobody consents to being forced to exist.
Okay, so by that same rationality, they won't consent to your genocide either.
Well, firstly, it's not genocide. And secondly, consent isn't a more important thing than suffering, right? In terms of values, suffering is more important than consent.
How is that not genocide, firstly?
So genocide is, let's pull up the definition, just to sort of, genocide is the intentional sort of, it's like an ethnic cleansing, right? So it's usually
that would be ethnic cleansing.
Crime. The intent is usually selfish and to benefit selfishly through atrocities, right? So it's done for bad reasons, right? Extinctionism is about compassion, responsibility, and ethics.
I mean, I could very well still make the same case that it's entirely selfish because the only people advocating for it are nihilists like you. So I don't understand. I mean, you want to seem to paint genocide as something that is constrained to ethnicity. No, that's.
So, I mean, coming on and telling me to unalive myself and that we're doing genocide, so it's not accurate, right? The guy is so crazy that he thinks that me unaliving myself makes sense. When obviously, that's completely contrary to the movement and our ethics. And then, try to essentially strawman and use nasty sounding ugly words as some sort of defense for what's really ugly, which is suffering. It's crazy. Not a good look, my friend. Not a good look. Okay, next caller, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
My only real question is, how does your movement expect to convince people of your cause? Because it doesn't really sound like an easy pill to swallow.
Yeah, so we don't expect to, like, as it stands, it seems biologically and physiologically impossible to convince most people. So it's not a question of messaging in that sense. We might find a way to solve that problem. So in the meantime, we are gathering those that do understand that suffering is unacceptable and that want to work towards stopping suffering and creating a suffering-free world. Extinctionists, right? So every day the movement is growing. We're getting new people on board. So we are finding lots of people. And it's not about convincing, right? Convincing is almost like warping and twisting. You can convince someone to go along with something though they don't really want to. So people that you have to convince and persuade, they're never going to be on board with it, really. The vast majority of activists in the movement today sort of just joined immediately. Either they came and asked to join, or when they were told about it, they said, yeah, okay, how do I help, right? So they didn't take convincing and persuading. But yeah, it's a big challenge, definitely, especially when it's a physiological sort of seemingly a dead end for most people. But yeah, so it's very difficult at the minute. It seems extremely challenging, and to many people it seems unrealistic. However, it's just difficult, essentially, and challenging. But by getting people on board that want to take on this challenge, it gives us better chances every day of actually solving the problem.
Thank you for answering my question.
And working on solutions at the same time.
That's really all I had to ask. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for your question. Thank you for coming on. We get this question a lot. How are you going to do it? Well, step one is trying, right? Step one is sort of acknowledging that it's possible, or that it can't be ruled out as impossible. So you have to be sort of open to it in that sense. Okay, next caller, please.
Oh yeah, how's everything? How you doing?
Decent. How are you?
Good. I think I just feel like in terms of the opposite. I think suffering kind of can build, character or thanks, because you look at people in America, or you look, at rich people, and I think they're very, kind of unhealthy, because I don't think they're living akin to what our ancestors live out, like our hunting and gathering ancestors. So a lot of people that seem to be in a privileged, good environment, they can be some of the most miserable people. And then you have some people that, might go through hardship or economic or suffering. But I just think it just builds character. I don't think we need to eliminate all life. I think we need to eliminate a lot of these resources whether this privilege that some people have, or even just the baseline privileges the West or Western Europe has. I don't think we need to eliminate the people. I think we need to destroy the privileges.
But you see, even in a legally equal world, even if we had communism, there's still going to be victims and extreme suffering, right? So it's not really a question of equality. In fact, the vast majority of suffering that happens is nothing to do with privilege and equality.
Okay, I'd love to talk, I guess, a bit more, but my battery's on 2%, so I gotta go. But thanks for letting me come on.
No worries. Thanks for joining us. All right. Who will be the next challenger? Will a challenger arise out of the pit of, Neanderthals? I'm checking the queue. I don't see what I like. Sorry. Certain people have burned certain bridges. If they want to message me and sort of explain why I should have them on, then yeah, why not? I'm an open-minded person. So while we wait for the next person to ring in, to dial in, press 0 for extinction. We can consider what he was saying. Does suffering build character? I'm sure it does, but only for the top 1%, really. Who benefits from being forced to exist? It's literally just the lucky ones and the unlucky ones. Now, another interesting sort of topic to dive into in relation to this, and if you've ever seen this TV show Severance, then that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. So it's an interesting idea in terms of, is suffering acceptable when it's offset? Let's say you have a lucky person, and yeah, they suffer a bit, but then it helped them out, or they grew from it, whatever. Maybe a lot of the time they're suffering, maybe even half the time, maybe even more than 50% of their life is suffering, which is literally the case for a lot of people. But let's say that 5% of their life isn't suffering. So they're working really hard at work and they hate it. They get home and they have to do all the chores. They have to do the washing up. They have, people moaning at them, family drama and all this stuff. And finally they get a bit of quiet time and they can watch TV or play a video game, read a book or something. And, the majority of the time they're just kind of suffering and waiting for that moment when they're not suffering. Is that a good life? And these people are coping to a large extent. Now, I'm not saying that all of them are better off not existing in some senses, but that they've got terrible lives. I'm not saying everyone has a terrible life, but even when if you are suffering half of the time terribly and then having fun the other half of the time, you could make the same argument that the TV show Severance makes, which is that it's unfair on the you that is suffering. Right? I think it's actually a really, really good argument against suffering, really. That, even if you're suffering only some of the time, or even just most of the time, that's still bad suffering. And, realistically, most people are not smart enough to acknowledge, or they're too scared to acknowledge that their life is terrible. A lot of people are just coping. They're trying to pretend that they're not having a terrible life, because it's like a survival method, right? Again, a nature thing. So just because some people are growing from their suffering, you could argue that even that suffering is bad, even if they think it's good. Now, again, we're against generalizing, but it is a seriously interesting thing to consider. Hello, how's it going?
It's miraculous, man. I think that if you believe this, then there's one way and one way only for you to prove it.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. Now, I am proving that I believe in it because I'm doing activism for it, right? Now, if an activist for the movement does what that guy wanted me to do, then essentially the movement gets set back by that, right? That would be supporting the world of suffering, right? Removing someone that's fighting against suffering from the fight hurts the fight against suffering. And if you are just going to come on and encourage self-harm, even if you have 1 million followers like that guy does, which is amazing, right? He has 1 million followers and he's telling people to do self-harm, which we're not doing, by the way. We're actually against self-harm of any kind. So let's have the next person on. Hello, how's it going?
Hello. Oh, I'm so glad I could reach you because I sat here and I watched another live and I had so many thoughts. And I'm kind of like split because in one hand, I do understand you. I do understand your points. And I'm not arguing against them in one hand, but I do have some questions.
Yes.
So, do you believe that suffering has no meaning?
What do you mean by meaning?
Is suffering meaningless?
But what does meaning mean to you?
Well, what the meaning means. What does meaning mean to me? Does it have a purpose?
The only purpose suffering has is to, in the current system we live in, is to benefit the lucky ones, right? That's an unfair system. So a baby bird being eaten by a snake alive, the snake benefits from the suffering of the baby animal, but the victim doesn't benefit.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that suffering has some purpose. Is that what you're saying? Or is all suffering bad or meaningless or purposeless?
So there's no sort of higher magical meaning or purpose that somehow makes it okay. All suffering is bad. However, sometimes the current system we live in is allowing and causing suffering for the sake of personal benefit or pleasure or survival. Extinctionism is about saying that it's only ever justified to allow or cause suffering in the pursuit of ending suffering, right?
Okay, so you do believe that suffering is purposeful if it ends suffering. Is that what you're saying?
You see, we wouldn't really look at it that way. So it's not something I am saying because it's not something I really, feel. We don't really try to create meaning or, anything like that. Usually that's just something that people use to defend and justify suffering, which is wrong. So suffering is bad. Every time someone suffers, it's bad. Even if you have to cause suffering to end greater suffering, all of the suffering involved is still bad, right? It's still a tragedy that it has to happen.
Okay, so But that makes no sense to me, because you're saying that suffering is bad, all suffering is bad, but you're also willing to create suffering by doing these lives. Because I'm watching all these people, being suffer because of what you're saying. So in some ways you are creating suffering by doing these lives.
But we live in a system of unavoidable suffering. Whether you go vegan or whether you eat meat, you're causing suffering either way. Every time you walk outside and stand on an insect or whatever it is, right? It's impossible not to cause suffering as long as we exist, essentially. And so it's all a terrible system that we need to put an end to.
So what kind of, if you had a magic wand where you could, end suffering without ending life, how would that look like for you?
Yeah. So if I had a magic wand and I couldn't do extinction with it, then I would probably try and rapture every life form up into heaven, basically.
Rapture. Can you please explain? I'm not English speaking. What does that mean? Rapture.
The rapture is the biblical event where every life form, Jesus comes back and everyone just floats away up into heaven, basically. So, we would want instantaneous safety from suffering, instantaneous. In this hypothetical, you're saying that non-existence is not an option. So we have to keep existence in your hypothetical. We would essentially just click our fingers and everyone's in heaven, basically. But the thing is that we don't have a magic wand, and so we have to work with what's practical. And controlling the animal population is already something that we do. So reducing animal populations is very possible, very feasible already. So animal extinction is already possible. We're not talking about magic here. We're talking about realistic ways to stop suffering.
I understand, but I'm just trying to understand your logic, because if you had a magic wand where you can end suffering without ending existence, and you're saying that would, if you could, have that white magic wand, you would create heaven on earth, basically, or heaven in universe. Is that what you're saying? I'm just follow my thought, because I'm going somewhere. Is that what you're saying?
So if I had a magic wand and I'm not allowed to do extinction with it, I would, wish for every life to be in what is effectively heaven. Yeah.
And how would how if you specify, how would that look? Would everybody be happy all the time? Would negative feelings don't exist, or how would that look specifically?
So, I mean, this isn't something that we generally research, but it is something I've thought about. It's possible that we would be in similar, have similar mental stability to what we have now, and so we wouldn't be overwhelmed all the time and overstimulated, essentially. But we just have better conditions. But I don't know. Who can say what heaven can possibly look like, right? You would have to have a magic wand to answer that question. So it's not really possible to answer that question. What is possible is more than possible. Is extinction and preventing life forms from being forced into.
I also think that it's it could be good to think about these things, because you're only looking at one solution, and maybe if you looked at it in, if you expanded your thoughts about suffering, because my opinion is that suffering, actually, in my life, suffering has created more joy for me, because if I didn't mourn, if I didn't suffer, I wouldn't also know what happiness was. I'm seeing that you're making a face.
But you're not thinking about the victims, right? So I would say that you're the one that's not thinking about the victims. And most people do make the same mistake of just focusing on the positives, right? But if you only focus on the positives, then you're ignoring the victims.
No.
And the victims take priority.
Yes, I understand that, and I'm absolutely not thinking about the victims. I do acknowledge that there is suffering and that it's problematic, but I also have a viewpoint that suffering can actually create more joy and meaning if we taught ourselves how to hold space for that suffering. And a lot of
but that's not even like that's not even a debated topic. I mean, I would say that everyone agrees that a bit of suffering builds character, right?
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you say that again?
I would say that that's everyone already agrees that suffering builds character for the lucky people, right?
For the lucky people, I would say that for those people that embrace I wouldn't say suffering, but embrace all of our human experience. And I also, and you don't have to agree with me, but I also think that as soon as we turn away from suffering, that is when we suffer, actually. So.
But what you're talking about doesn't even apply to most of life on the planet, right? Most baby animals get eaten alive or starved to death, right? So there's no balance for most life. So again, it's only the lucky ones, and even if you don't realize that you're the lucky one, you actually are.
Because how do you define? How do you know that? How do you know that I'm the lucky one?
Because you're not being eaten alive, right? And you're lucky enough to say that suffering is a good thing, whereas for most life it's a bad thing. So you've kind of got it upside down, because you're the lucky one.
Because I'm not being eaten alive. Is that what you're saying?
Which is what happens to most, unfortunate life on this planet. Life.
Mm. So, how do you know? Because I'm feeling a sense of that I know. How can I explain this? I'm feeling a sense of a little bit of entitlement that you're, you get to define what other beings suffering is.
You see, that's what people like yourselves are trying to do. It's people like yourself that are saying, we can say that suffering isn't real. We can say that animals don't suffer, or that they suffer less, right? So this terrible suffering isn't actually debatable or questionable. But the lucky ones try to make it sound like it's, it's a mystery. We can't be sure that anyone's suffering, which is just a tool of oppression. and evil.
I still don't understand how you see me as the lucky one, because I have
because
suffered.
you're saying that there's balance, right? You're saying that
Yes, go on.
You haven't suffered enough to understand how to understand how bad suffering is, right?
And you know that. Do you know that for a fact?
I would say that that's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Okay, so I have suffered a lot in my life, and I think that you maybe believe that I'm one of the lucky ones.
But you survived, right? You survived through that suffering. Most don't.
Well, we all won't survive.
Well, no, you did survive the suffering, right? You did survive. You did survive, but most baby animals being eaten alive don't survive, right? And that is most animals that are born.
Okay. So you think that I'm the lucky one because I wasn't eaten alive?
I would say that you're definitely luckier than most of the victims, right? Because you're trying to justify suffering, so you don't understand how bad it is, which means that you are lucky.
So how do you get to that point where you see that I get to? No, sorry, I forgot my thought. But I have another thought that because I don't think that you're making any sense. It's not logical for me.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say, add there that because I wasn't allowed to finish my thought, that the reason why I am like this today is because I have suffered a lot, and I mean a lot.
Right.
And
would that suffering have had any meaning if you would have died from the suffering?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on. If you think that babies being tortured to death are, serving some greater purpose of meaning, then you're on the wrong side, basically. Duh. Okay. The Extinction Zone is now welcoming. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, I'm just curious, where did this view come from in the first place? Did you watch Avengers and hear Thanos and was like, yo?
No. It's a serious movement run by empathetic activists who want to have a suffering-free world.
So, in your view, this mindset is the empathetic mindset?
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally what Thanos thought, though, right? He's like, everyone suffers so much, so it would just be better if they just never existed, or they were all just gone in the first place. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, let's represent Thanos accurately, okay? Because you're not. Thanos was just a monster who thought that there was overpopulation, and that just by removing half the population once, that would solve all the problems, right? So it's a completely different thing.
Right, it's not apples to apples, but it's pretty close.
It's very different. Actually.
No, in his view, though, he was the empathetic person in the situation. He had empathy for the problems that everyone had and everything, so he wanted to eliminate.
You're talking about a fantasy character here. Let's try and stay grounded in reality, right?
Well, I'm just trying to ground how nonsensical the entire argument really is.
Well, if you want to do that, then you should do it directly. because if you straw man it, then you're doing yourself a disservice and everyone else a disservice, because you're not talking about the actual movement, right? You're talking about a fake version. You're talking about Thanos.
All right, so the whole point is that yes, they're suffering. Life is filled with injustices. People start at different positions in life. Some are incredibly blessed. Some are horribly downtrodden, and misfortune falls upon their entire life. That's certainly a characteristic of life. There's much grief, much suffering, all of these things.
So it's
but
unfair,
that is,
you think? You think it's inherently unfair,
excuse me,
right?
Excuse me. And that is inherently a characteristic of life. That is the nature of life. However, there's also the other side of the coin. And I would pose to you that if you gave every single person on earth a big red button, and if all they have to do is press that red button, and everything would just cease to exist. There would be no more suffering, but in that their lives would cease to exist. And whatever population pressed the button, then it wouldn't happen. Most people, according to your worldview, are suffering and live horrible lives and everything like that. But most people would still choose life. So explain to me why that is.
I didn't say that most people are having terrible lives.
Oh, excuse me. I thought that. So in your thing, most people.
All right. Wow, some serious attitude there. Try and tone it down a bit, bro.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going good. How about you?
Good.
This is my first time ever seeing something like this, and it's very interesting. It really has me thinking because, when you really break it down, like, it's hard to disagree with what you're saying, right? And I'm looking for ways to think or like tell you why you're wrong, but it's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, you're either on the side of good or the side of bad, essentially. Most people are essentially on the side of evil, and allowing unlimited extreme torture and suffering and victimization. We have a zero tolerance policy on suffering, forced existence, all of these terrible things. And why shouldn't there be a zero tolerance policy on it? So that some people can run around and have fun and then get hit by a car or something terrible, right? It's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, but there are a few things that I wanted to, like bring up that I thought were interesting in like regards, or like some thought experiments almost. So, and like in your view, like, is it the goal to just like for the entire universe to just like cease to exist? Like, would that be like, if you had like a magic wand and you could do whatever you want, like, would that be the primary goal? Because you say like extinction, does that just mean like for humans or like all life in general?
All life, and potentially the universe as well, if we can.
Right. So like, you would say it'd be better, right, if the universe would just like cease to exist? That would fulfill the goal.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I would say that there's sort of two sides of the coin, right? A lot of people are asking me a similar question. They're saying, if you had a magic wand, or what would you do with it?
Mm-hmm.
And so you effectively have kind of two choices: absolute non-existence, or maybe something like infinite heaven, where there's just maybe you're adding new people into it constantly, or maybe it is infinite and it's infinite heaven. I do think there's maybe an argument for the heaven thing, right? If you had 100% safety, right? But that would be the standard and the absolutely crucial elements to it, right? It would have to be impossible, like extremely impossible for it to go wrong, right? Yeah. So it would require the highest standards possible, and if there was any chance of it going wrong, then non-existence would be, unquestionably better, right, and safer. Now, the thing is that it's these are difficult questions to answer, but they're also not massively grounded in reality. What is reality is that, we already control animal populations. We don't need a magic wand to cause extinction. And, if we ever get a magic wand, then we could, think about it when we get it, essentially.
I mean, yeah, you're right. And I agree with what you just said, but from my view, I'm not religious. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in free will either. So, like, I believe life obviously just formed like from, or not obviously, well, to me it's obvious, but whatever. I believe life formed from like natural processes and like all these things, right? And your criteria that needs to be met, right, to not suffer, would obviously be just to not exist, right? Like, if you don't exist, you can't suffer, obviously. So, even though we're living lives, humans, animals, bacteria, whatever, like just anything living, it's still gonna not exist forever after, its life. So, the way I see it, and like you're also right in the fact that a very small percentage of the living, or the sentient beings get to have like a somewhat enjoyable life or worthwhile life, right? Most of them do have lives that are just horrible, like filled with suffering, just bad, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, this is a finite time, right? We're going to all not exist forever. Once we die, we're not coming back. So we are going to not suffer forever. So, and the way I see it, it's kind of like, it's like a lottery almost. Like, yeah, most living beings won't get to have an enjoyable life. But seizing the universe is like just taking away the lottery almost. Like, if you don't win, you're going to die and you're going to be not suffering forever. But if you do win, you get a somewhat enjoyable life. And yeah, it's from the internal perspective, it is selfish, like in a way, but from that looking outside in, I don't think it is. I mean, I don't believe in free will. I believe everything is going to happen the way it's going to happen, and that's the only way that it can happen. So,
I mean, extinctionists are like caretakers, essentially. We've accepted responsibility for reality and the world, which most people don't do, right? Which is demonstrably true. Most people don't want to get involved in politics. Most people just want to stay in their lane, really. So, as a responsible caretaker for the world, we're not going to allow victims and suffering, right? Just so that some lucky ones that win the lottery can have fun. It's not a responsible way to go about it.
Okay, yeah, I see. So, I mean, see, like, I already said this at the beginning. Your position is not a weak position. It's very strong, and it's just very for a lot of people, including myself, it's not something most people want to even confront. Right? Most people don't want to think about it. Most people would rather just, like you said, just enjoy their lottery win. But I mean,
it goes directly against survival instinct. It goes directly against our nature, right? So yes, it's a very challenging thing to consider for most people, and yet most people that we're talking to are the lucky ones that have won the lottery, because they weren't born as an animal that got eaten alive, and so when we're saying you've got the lucky ones that have won the lottery, the winners are unfortunately, as it stands, not willing to let go of their winnings, essentially, to help others.
Right. So, what do you think we should do in this life to stop suffering? Like, I'm assuming you're vegan.
No, not vegan. So, I mean, what we should do is work with the pro-extinction movement and work to actually achieving extinction.
So what would that look like? Like, what would that realistically look like if that were to actually be like followed through with?
Well, we are following through with it. It's a real movement.
No, I'm saying like
doing
if the entire planet were to be like, all right, let's do it. Like, what would that process look like?
Great question. So we would start reducing the animal population, and at the same time, we would work to remove the technical dependence on animals for the planet's habitability. If every animal disappeared tomorrow, there'd be no pollination, etc., and the planet would actually become uninhabitable. So firstly, we have to deal with animals on our planet. Then we can deal with as much of the universe as possible. Now, we might be able to pass over the mission to robots that can do it, in which case we wouldn't really need humanity anymore. However, there are risks involved with relying on robots. For example, solar flares can knock out technology, but they can't knock out biological beings like ourselves. We would need, a really high level of certainty, and we may not even acquire a level of certainty to where we can trust robots to carry on the mission. So humanity may well have to stay around for a long time. But, that's, it's hard to kind of predict the future and see exactly how it's going to go. But yeah.
So when you say the rest of the universe, so I guess you're just assuming that, and I would say there probably is life outside of the universe, but that just seems unattainable. Like we don't even know of life in our solar system or galaxy, anything like that, right? So, it's kind of just like an internal critique. It is kind of pointless, but like...
It's just another very large challenge, basically. But, humanity is only at the beginning of its venture into technology and science, really. We've only had the internet for 30 years, right? So, 1,000 years from now, things that seemed impossible will probably be much more possible.
Right, so when you say like to take care of the animal population, would that just be through like inaction, or like would you be actually like killing all the animals, or just let them die, or like just prevent like breeding, or like essentially?
Yeah, if you just left them alone, nothing would happen. They would just keep reproducing forever, right, and suffering. So euthanasia will probably be necessary. We might use sterilization if we have to, but sterilization is actually not as good as euthanasia, because firstly, you're still allowing them to be suffering, and secondly, sterilization can alter the hormones and chemistry of an animal in a negative way and actually mess them up, like psychologically, for example. So euthanasia is far superior.
Right. And like,
well, we should have a planet, right?
Sorry, what?
It's as simple as, we should have a suffering-free planet, basically.
Yeah, you're right.
We can maybe even replace the animals with robots for people's amusement, right? If they really need it.
Just let the robots take over Earth, essentially.
No, like you could have robot lions and robot cats.
Oh, I see. So what about like if only humans existed, right? Like we get rid of everything else, we get robots and just humans.
Yeah. So,
or like, oh, sorry to cut you off, but like, what about like a fully like one global like country, or not country, like one global government, like a very like socialist thing, like where everyone is tried or is equal, like everyone is cared for, like no homelessness, like everyone strives for as minimal suffering. It's like an entire team effort, essentially, like, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're not capable of reaching the like, not everyone doesn't suffer, but like the intent, everyone's working together to help everyone. What would you feel about that?
Well, the standard is always 100% safety from suffering and 100% safety from things going wrong, 0% risk. So, even if we had a world of humans and they were all having fun and the worst thing that happened was stubbing your toe, the thing is that if there was a chance of it going wrong somehow, a risk of it going wrong, then it would still be a bad thing. And the standard for that is actually much higher than most people realize. So, truly certainty that there's going to be no victims is necessary, basically. 100% safety, right? Anything less is unacceptable.
I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, you're definitely right with all this. It's just very extreme, yeah. I mean,
it's an extreme problem, and yeah, it is extreme in the sense that no one agrees with it.
Yeah.
But the way I look at it is like you couldn't convince a cat to be a good person or to make smart choices. You couldn't convince a monkey to be a good person and to make smart choices and to have a robust moral system. And the same is actually true for most humans. And it's a myth that it's otherwise.
I mean, yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to your just like our biology. So
yeah, absolutely.
And it is, I mean, rooted in selfishness. I mean, selfishness, right? But
life wouldn't have survived if it wasn't selfish, right?
Yeah.
But being selfish isn't a neutral thing. You have to kind of warp and twist a life form to be really selfish, right? And that's the situation we're in.
See, like the thing, or my only contention is just because the way that my ethical worldview is it's all natural and I get it. Even us doing this would be natural, essentially, right? This might just be a byproduct of intelligence, right? We're intelligent enough to realize that this would be a solution, and in turn,
this may even be the great filter, right?
Right. In turn, might be a natural process, right? And I don't know what the great filter is, but I assume it's something like that, right?
It's the idea that we can't see any aliens in space because they've all gone extinct.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's very interesting. I want to look more into this. You said there's an official movement.
Yeah, you can check our website, proextinction.com. You can read the manifesto, the FAQ. You can also join our Discord. The link is on the website. And, ask us more questions if you like, or even join the movement and help us, stop all of this suffering.
What actions do y'all take, in real life?
So primarily, growing the movement is the easy thing that people can do. We do have scientists that are doing serious research and scientific work as well. But for most people, they sort of start just by making videos, helping to spread the message and grow the following and stuff like that. So it depends on, what you're good at and, what you can bring to the movement.
Well, the realistic thing of it is the movement will only work if everyone agrees for it, right? Because you can't attempt that without people trying to intervene, obviously, unless everybody agrees. So it feels like a mandatory thing that must happen would be everybody has to agree with it for it to go smoothly, right?
Well, no societal change has ever had absolute agreement. And in fact, most of the time there's minority agreement.
Well, I know, but...
So most people just kind of go along with it and accept it. So when gay marriage got legalized, most people were against it, but it was just pushed through for lots of reasons. Maybe some of the reasons were that It was better economically speaking, and to be more open in that sense. But yeah, most people have resisted societal change, and it's empathetic people that have spearheaded the change and forced it to change, essentially.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to say that it shouldn't happen without full agreement, but I'm saying it's going to be vastly more difficult without full agreement, right?
Well, we're working on both, basically. We have to do everything we can, work on as many different angles as possible. But yeah, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be an interesting challenge, and if you find that interesting and want to sort of contribute to it, then join the movement.
I'm definitely gonna look more into it. This is very interesting.
Great. Well, thanks for coming on. Really great questions. I appreciate that. So yeah, thank you.
Yep. All right, man. Take care.
Peace out. Welcome to the Extinction Zone. Oh, no. Oh, are they coming on? Is it loading? I'm so bad at TikTok. I'm sorry, guys. Please be empathetic and forgive me. Let's take some comments from the chats while we await the next challenger. I'm pretty sure this movement isn't entirely interested in full agreement. We would take it if it was offered. But the thing is about agreement is that, and it's really interesting to think about, can you get anyone to agree with something logically, right? And people keep asking this, what's the logical basis for this? But that's not actually how the world works. People just sort of support what they feel like supporting. A lot of that is just down to brain chemistry. So your brain chemistry largely determines how you are, who you are, what you like, what you support. If you're religious or not, if you're intelligent, unintelligent, if your sex drive is high or low, all your preferences. A lot of your preferences are down to your genetic history. And a lot of those are essentially for the sake of survival and evolution. So yeah, the idea that you are who you are, and it's not just nature and genetics is a myth, right? But we would love everyone to agree with it, and maybe they will in the future. We can work towards that, but we're also open to options where that's not a possibility. We have to be open to all possibilities, all options, all solutions, because we're not doing this for fun. We're doing this for virtually unlimited victims that are depending on us to get this done. So our responsibility is paramount, right? And that's what people kind of don't realize, that we have so many people and animals desperately depending on us to do this. This isn't some vanity project or a bit of fun, or this is just my ideology. No, we are responsible for an insane number of life forms depending on us. So yeah, we have to work on every solution possible. Loading in. Hello.
Hey, I just have a question.
Sure.
When you say we should make all life permanently extinct, what does that mean?
It means making sure that there's as little life as possible and as little chance of life developing and redeveloping and coming about again as possible. So the most vast and thorough extinction possible.
So like for humans?
So human, for all life, but primarily for non-human life, because they can't help themselves, right? Humanity is the vehicle for extinction. And so humanity has to stay around until the end, basically.
Well, like how would we get food if all life was dead?
Yeah, so part of what, how it may play out is that we will probably need to remove our dependence on animals and have an animal-free planet. The thing is, if all animals disappeared tomorrow, the planet would be uninhabitable. Yeah. There'd be no pollination, for example. So it's going to be a massive endeavor and challenge to remove our dependence on animals. And so we would be doing that alongside reducing their population until extinction.
Okay. Okay, I agree on that.
Most of our food comes from plants anyway, right?
Oh, I don't know, bro.
Yeah, I mean, crisps or, chocolate, most stuff comes from plants anyway. Potatoes, vegetables. Most of our diet is doesn't even involve animals anyway. Thanks for joining us, and we shall journey on into the void, into the dark, black void of extinction. Oh no! People are scared of extinction, but it actually represents a benefit to everyone. Now, ironically, we're saying that humans might not benefit from extinction for a very long time. But for those that are, emotionally scared of extinction, or trying to understand why it's good for animals, it provides safety, right? Safety is a good thing. Safety is a massive benefit, right? Especially when it's absolute safety. So it shouldn't be such a scary thing. It's not all downsides, right? And for those that need it the most, it is that really need that safety and would otherwise be in the worst conditions possible. It's an absolutely good thing. What's our website called? It's proextinction.com. That's one word, proextinction.com, all one word. You can also Google pro-extinction. You can Google abolish suffering Discord and join us on Discord. It'll be the top link, and you can ask us more there as well. Read all about us on our website. We have a very lengthy FAQ and a manifesto page. Now, another thing that's really interesting is sacrifice, right? And selflessness. If others are suffering terribly, then they need help, and more than us, essentially. We'll go into that a bit more later, but we've got a guest for now. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I don't have a lot of things to say, but so extinguish humans or all life, or what kind of extinction you're talking about?
All life, but humans would be last because we're the ones that can actually do it. So farmed animals, wild animals, potential life in the universe, and then humans at the end. But it's mostly about prevention. Most of the victims we want to prevent are in the future, so preventing billions of years of more suffering on Earth for animals, and preventing life from developing or from continuing in the universe.
Why not to start with humans?
Because you can't start with humans and then carry on, right? Because there'd be no one to carry it on.
So we extinguish everything possible that we are aware of, because we don't know all the universe, right?
Yeah, I mean, as
far as we know.
Yeah, I mean, our research has shown that it's actually very likely that the universe will be teeming with life.
Yeah. So how are we going to deal with that?
By trying, essentially. That's step one, right? You have to be open to trying and to working towards it. So, the very first step is growing our movement because no one cares about this kind of thing at the minute, right?
Yeah. How? Let's say that where we're going to start, in the planet Earth, or we're going to start somewhere else.
Most likely planet Earth. Yeah.
Well, we can extinguish everybody. We just actually detonate the atomic bombs that we have right now, and there's no life more in the planet. We can actually move out of orbit the planet Earth, and that will be it.
Well, actually, we don't have. Well, firstly, nuclear means are not effective for extinction. The asteroid that wiped out most of the dinosaurs had the power of over 1 billion nuclear bombs, and that still didn't cause total extinction. So it's actually a myth that nukes are a serious option. Unfortunately, they're not. However, we already control animal populations on Earth, so you don't need nukes to do that.
We can pour. If you know, the oil gets really thin on the face of the water. So we can just pump all oil on top of the seas, and that will prevent light from going inside the sea, and then everything start degrading from there. That sounds like a great idea, right?
See, I don't think that sounds very thorough, right?
Well, you can try it. Like you can have a fish tank and put some oil on the top. Oxygen will stop. How do you call that? All the sun and all the changes that does with interaction with bacteria and things like that will stop. Oxygen normally comes from the sea, the seaweed on the sea. So we can actually start to burn or not creating or not allow the plants to make some oxygen, and then everything will start dying from there. That's a good idea, right?
I mean, it's something we could look into, maybe.
Yeah. So what is your plan? I want to know. Obviously, I don't agree with you. I'm just trying to figure out how you're going to do it.
Well, that's the thing, right? You can't figure it out without doing serious research. It's like saying, let's figure out what the cure to cancer would be. It's just you can't do it.
No, we can push cancer on everything. So that's the way. But what is your plan? Like you're just saying it, or do
you want to give every life form cancer? Yeah. I mean, that doesn't sound like a very peaceful or nice way to go about it.
Well, I don't see it peaceful to destroy all life in the planet, even the planet. But you wanted to do it peacefully. So you want to extinguish, but peacefully.
It's more about the peace that will come afterwards, though, right?
Like, who cares? There's no one.
We do. We care.
No. Once that we're extinguished and there's no planet Earth, who's going to be watching it? Is there peace with no one watching? Peace would not. Yeah? How is that?
How would it not be?
Also, you think that non-existence is peaceful, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Do you think it's not?
No, peaceful. Peace is a state of mind.
Is it?
Yes, of course. Otherwise, there's no peace. Peace is an interaction with self and consciousness.
Let's Google this, because I don't. That's a very different definition than the one I've got. Peace is defined as freedom from disturbance and tranquility, or a state where there is no violence, no war. So I think the actual definition is very different from what you were trying to suggest.
But okay. Well, let's try to make it. Maybe it's not what I'm trying to say by definition, but the fact that in order to have peace has a charge in words. Even the word peace, it's something that we create to define something. So peace.
But we're against playing word games, though, because you don't have to play word games to understand that suffering is bad, and that suffering should be stopped and prevented, right? So we don't rely on definitions. We don't rely on words and word games, word salad. Suffering's bad, obviously. It's just
how do you say that? How can you say that? How can you say that something is bad? I'm not trying to play or gut you or anything like that. You said
I
that
don't know.
something is bad
In my mouth.
based on what you define something and give value to something that is happening that you deem it bad.
But I mean, suffering is bad by definition, right?
No.
But,
Yeah, by
I mean,
definition, yeah, but without justification, unless you have a justification for that.
But I mean, it's obvious that like some suffering is bad, right?
With morals and values, maybe. Without that, then there's no such thing.
Well, if
Like,
you have empathy, actually, so you don't need
yeah,
morals and values.
but all of these
If you
things
have
that you're
empathy,
describing
then
is a process. You're describing a process, a human process
of
in the
what?
mind, right?
What are you referring?
Like empathy and suffering and good and bad. Those are values that we gave ourselves as humans to describe something that we like or we dislike. But is that real or not?
We live in a real world, right?
What is the justification? Not just saying it. How do you justify good or bad? Both, not just bad. But
Well,
good.
okay. So you see a baby getting abused and you say that's bad, right? It's easy. You're making it sound difficult, but it's actually very easy to see suffering and to say that's bad.
Yeah, I can agree with you because we're inside a system, but you have to have justification to claim it. Based on what? Because just because we're saying it, you don't need that?
No.
So if I say why, you don't know, you say, well, it is evident. And I say, well, I don't see it evident. I think that baby, I think that baby
some
will
people,
have a...
Yeah, some people will look at, someone getting tortured and say, I don't understand why it's bad. And that's, but some smarter people will understand that it is bad, right?
Yeah, but I understand that what you're saying, and I agree with you, but I want you to tell me the justification of why is that. Not just
but why
that
do you
we
need a
agree with it.
justification? It's obvious that, someone getting tortured, it's a bad thing, right? So there's no requirement for further justification.
Wow. Well, I believe that you can like totalitarian. You have a totalitarian mind. You justify your beliefs based on what you feel, and not.
But that's the way the world works, right? No one has ever, no one in the world has ever operated in their day-to-day life or changed a government or societal change. Nothing ever in existence has operated on what you're suggesting. Which is
you have in 1939 to 1945, you have in China with some emperors that they believe different and their morals and values change because of the emperor.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So everyone has their own values. Everyone has their differences, right?
Yeah, but they justify it by something. If you talk to a Christian, they will say because God said so. And then God says this and God said that, and their justification is their belief.
We're not appealing to something irrational, okay? We're appealing to something demonstrable and rational, which is someone getting tortured doesn't want to get tortured, right? So it's unquestionable.
No,
it's unnecessary to have a higher sort of standard to be able to say that their suffering is bad.
I agree with you. But then you don't have any justification. I don't know, maybe the words that I'm not saying correctly, but in order to claim that something is good, you have to have justification for that. Good is this, bad is that. And just because you claim something that is bad or good, it has to have a core, like an epistemic thing that says, okay, if you act like this or you do that,
right, but it's a bit like saying 1 + 1 = 2, and most people would say, yeah, for sure. But if someone says, I don't get it, I need every mathematical proof in the world we need to go through this with a toothpick, fine comb and everything. People are going to say, I don't have time to do that, right? If you can't understand that 1 + 1 = 2. Then I can't help you, and you have a problem, a defect or something, and I'm not going to spend hours and hours trying to explain it to you.
So try to explain to me in Germany from 1920 to 1945, what was their because they believe things that we don't, right? You agree with that? You believe different than the Germans from 1920 to 1945, or you agree with them?
I mean, there were lots of Germans in Germany, right?
Yeah.
So
So the one that were pushing the agenda, the I don't know, the Yahtzee agenda. Do you agree with them or not?
no, we don't agree with anyone except for extinctionists, basically. Those
Okay,
that agree
but do you
that
agree
no one
with
should.
them? They
Sorry?
believe that the Jays were a disease that has to be extinguished because they actually believe that. And if you ask them, they believe that they were not doing wrong. They were doing what is needed to take down virus from society. Do you agree with that?
I mean, yeah, I think everyone does whatever they believe in, right? But
Exactly.
the thing about extinctionism is that it is rational, right? And you can prove it. And essentially, people that disagree with it are being irrational.
What
And you know,
about the people that don't agree with you? What are you gonna do with it? You're gonna force it?
but, like, for example, with slavery, and in lots of societal changes, things that have been made law, there was massive, even majority disagreement with that change, right? But they were able to accept it once it had been pushed through as, you know,
By force.
the leadership or the government is deciding this and you're just going to have to roll with it now. If you don't like gay marriage, then tough luck, basically. It's law. So, you know, we've never, just 100% agreement has never been a part of anything in the world or any change.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So people will not agree with you, so they will oppose you, right? People will. If you said that you're going to do this and people oppose you, do you understand that they have an opposition? Do you understand that they don't believe whatever you believe? Do you understand that there's people like that? So in case that you want to do this and they want to do that, then there's going to be a kind of like in the best possible scenario, a debate. But let's say that you still don't change your mind and they don't change your mind. But then
let me ask you a question. Do you think that the war to end slavery was a bad thing?
Yeah, but I have justification for that. I believe that all humans are created equal. And because of that, try to submit other people into my will. I don't think that is good because I believe that. And it comes from the Bible. Otherwise, I don't have any justification to believe that some other human has.
Is it your will that, you know, animals keep being forced to exist, to suffer?
I'd rather not intervene. I can give you an example.
Right, but you see, inaction is an action, and it is a position, right? So your position is effectively that forced existence is bad, is okay, sorry, and that extreme suffering is acceptable.
I'm going to give you an example. So I was living in the jungle for 3 years, and then I'm super peaceful. I'm doing my thing. I'm away from everybody. I have no electricity. I'm away. So animals start feeling safe around me. So there's a pair of owls that were like 10 feet away from my door. Okay. And then they start reproducing over there. And for some reason, a big rain happens and then the male drowned. And the chicks are screaming, and the female, I don't see her in about 3 days, and the chicks are screaming. So I opened the nest and grabbed 3 little owls and tried to save them. As soon as I did that, mother came. So I say, oops. So I put them back, and mother ate them. So my intervention made those owls for the mom to eat them. If I didn't have any interaction, those owls will have a future. But it was my intervention what makes them suffer, right? So you can allow life to happen, and happens because it happens. Whatever happens, it comes with good and bad, or not. Now, my question to you is that if you agree with me that there's some people that will not agree with you, and then you said you're going to vote it, and then you're going to make it law and things like that, okay? And then you have a plan. The opposition will say to you, no. So we're going to have debates and you're going to try to force it. And at some point, it's going to come to a point that I will actually have to force you, or you have to force me into your plan. That's the end goal, the very end of it. So whoever wins is the ones that is going to move forward to apply their prescription on the planet. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, but you know,
Okay,
like for
so
example, animal
let
extinction
me
is
finish. Let me finish.
doesn't affect most humans anyway.
When you hit that space where it says, "Well, I don't like your ideas," I'm not saying that. I'm just going through the example. Okay. When you believe that, and I disagree with you, and we have debates to see if it's good and if it's bad, that's perfect. But when we disagree and there's no way of coming to a political agreement, then war happens. And so my point is that because of the way that you are saying this, my prescription of you kind of mind, and this is without any, I'm not trying to offend you, okay? You have a mind of a tyrant that believes that he knows better than others or better than life itself. So I believe, or either you haven't thought through it all the way to execution, and if you think all the way through execution, there's going to be a big war with you, and maybe you win. I'm not saying that you not win, but there's going to be a big war where a lot.
And you think that would be a bad thing?
What? Well, I believe that is bad because people will suffer.
Really? Okay. So you think a war would be bad because people would suffer, and therefore it's unacceptable? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's not unacceptable. It is not unacceptable. War is not unacceptable. War is needed.
What is your point?
The point is that war is needed to extinguish ideas like that. Okay. We did it in Japan. We did it in 1945. Right. We actually fought and won, and then those ideas are practically extinguished. So, are you willing to go to war?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. How many people do you think that are on your side? Because you cannot you will not start a war without knowing that you're going to win, right? Or would you just go to war like kind of like the Palestinians trying to fight with Israel, knowing that they're going to lose?
We have to do things in a smart way, right? So you can only do your best, but if you are smart, then your best is going to be pretty good.
Nice. But do you think that you will have that opposition, and you're willing to go towards that?
The thing is that if you've ever seen the film Idiocracy,
yes,
then you know that it's true, it's real, right? So there's not even going to be much of a war because 100 years from now, humanity is just going to be sheep plugged into a TV screen and video games, right? So there's probably not even going to be much difference.
Oh yeah, sure. No, my point is that if you can do it and your ideas are in a sense good, if you call your ideas good and you can do whatever you are explaining and you can win that war, then and well, there's no one there to see it. Would you commit after, like suicide, after you achieve most of it and you will be the last one? Would you commit suicide?
So firstly, we might not actually need a war. Okay, extinctionists are people that are smart enough to consider other options and other solutions while still prioritizing the victims, right? So the victims urgently need extinction. So we can't just lounge around and, for example, wait for 51% agreement from the population.
Yeah, I agree with you. Also, I am agreeing with you in the position that you have. I don't agree with the idea, but I agree with your position. Will you commit suicide after?
Firstly, we're against human extinction to begin with anyway, at least until the very end. So
yeah, the very end. I'm talking about the very end. You're the last one. You and your friends that started with this, and you say, well, everything is extinct. Will you commit suicide?
So that would depend on whether or not there's 100% safety, right?
Yeah, everything is good. Everything is good. Your idea run like a hot knife in butter. Okay, so everything's good. Everything is extinct. There's no life in the planet. there's no life in the planet, will you commit suicide?
Or just a small distinction there. We want to do it for as much of the universe as possible as well. So humanity may need to continue for a long time. But yeah, to answer your question, it would depend on whether or not there's 100% safety. So you know,
it's 100% safety. Like you are sure, you're 100% sure, you're 100% sure that you have extinguished all the life in the universe. Will you commit suicide?
So okay, interesting question, and definitely a valid question. And you know, Luke, it's not actually a crazy question, because he's essentially saying, you know, would I be on board with total extinction, or would I be a hypocrite, right? So you know, don't worry, he's not trolling. It's actually a valid question.
Yeah, I'm not trolling at all. Okay, I'm not trying to question. I told you that I absolutely disagree with you at 100%, but I'm trying to see how do you think and challenge your idea. It's not. I'm not trolling at all.
So it would come down to sort of moral obligation. Firstly, is there any chance that I might change my mind and become a bad person the next day, start creating life and allowing it to suffer? So, you know, there has to be an absolute zero risk for others, right, in a selfless sense. Then I can consider myself and my own safety. And if, you know, I guess it would come down to, do I want to live at that point? And, you know, is there a guarantee that it's 100% safe, basically?
Yeah, it's 100% safe. You're the last thing alive in the universe. You are the last thing alive in the universe. You and your friends or your family, whatever you want to. Because I believe you're going to start with your family, right? You have to start with your own, because you don't want them to suffer. You start with your dad, mom, children, and then your community, and then your state and your country.
No, I mean, that is trolling, bro. Because, you know, like I said, humanity is going to continue. Most likely, my parents will have passed away from old age. By the time we get to the end of the universe, I'll probably have passed away from old age. You know, maybe I'll live long enough to have the immortality injection. Who knows? Maybe that'll be invented in 40 years from now. They'll cure aging or something. But you know, essentially, if there was literally no reason for me not to stay alive, then I might want to stay alive. I might not. You know, who knows, right? It kind of depends on how I feel at the time. Essentially, your question is like, if there's absolutely no moral consideration necessary, you know, there's no danger anymore. You know, there's literally zero things to consider. And I can get to stay on, would I want to? Not a very relevant question to extinctionism, really, but I don't know, you know, it depends how I feel at the time, right? Anyway, I've got to go. My girlfriend is desperate to see me, so it's been a good stream. I've done quite a few hours today, and I will be doing more tomorrow. Check out our website, proextinction.com, Google search Abolish Suffering Discord, and join us and join the movement, or come and ask us questions in the Discord. So thanks for joining us, everyone, and we will see you on the next stream.